All right. Thank you all again for joining today. Today is January the 30th, 2021. You're with the International Association of Woodcarvers. Today we have a special guest on with us. It's Mr. Shawn Moulenbelt from Michigan. Shawn is the owner and maker of 51 Bravo Knives. Shawn's going to be on talking to us here in a few minutes about hand forging knives. Before we get started with Shawn, I want to go through a couple of things that we have coming up. Some classes that are ahead of us, just to remind everybody the things that are available for wood carvers. Dave Stetson's going to have a class coming up on a dancing fiddler. Kevin Applegate's doing an ongoing class on iron mite caricature carving. Janet Cordell has a grizzly bear class and some other classes that she's outlined out on the Wood Carving Academy. So if you're interested in taking classes from Janet Cordell, go out and check her out. Ryan Olson's going to be completing his hot tub scene in a class coming up in March. If you're interested in that class, reach out to Ryan. Dwayne Gosnell's going to be doing a pirate class. I think that class is either in March or April. And then Dale Green signed up to do a class in April also. It's on one of his rough outs called Boomer. So if you're interested in Dale Green's classes, check him out. I want to remind everybody that all these videos are placed out on YouTube after the meeting's over. So make sure you go out and like and subscribe those videos. You can go back and rewatch past episodes that we've had or today's episode with Mr. Moulenbelt. And at the end of the meeting, we'll go through presenters that's coming up here in the future. But I want to allow time for the presentation for Shawn, so I'll get ready to turn that over to him. Shawn was on the past season 7, episode 3 of Forged in Fire. He has quite a bit of knowledge as far as hand making knives. He specializes in everyday carry knives as well as wood carving knives, specifically decoy carving knives. And he's going to talk a little bit about his process, what knives he has available, and what he has to share with us. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to Shawn. Shawn, we appreciate you taking your time out today to meet with us, and we look forward to hearing what you have to share.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here, man. So very exciting stuff. So how early do we want to start? We'll go way back to the beginning, or what'd you say we had an hour, right?
Yeah, go back as long as you want to.
Oh, all right. I was very young when I was born. No. I guess, first of all, people always ask me, 51 Bravo, what's that about? And I was actually a carpenter and a mason in the Army. I joined the Army right out of high school, and they have their MOSs, which is military occupational specialty. And 51 Bravo is carpenter and mason. So that was my training right out of high school. And after that, got out and went through college, went through ROTC, and it was in construction pretty much my whole life. So the knife making thing is only about probably 5 years old now. And since the pandemic hit, the construction thing has really slowed down for me. So I'm pretty much doing this full time as best I can right now. So, but yeah, the carving thing just started probably 2 years ago. I did more of the EDC knives, which I brought some with me. I think, am I supposed to be going this way with it? Yeah, so these are just some of the ones I make on a regular basis. I make fillet knives and stuff too. One of the other things I do is with, this is actually a farrier's rasp, a horseshoer. So the lady my male lady is also a horse person. So she brings me just boxes of these old files, which I used to practice on, but now people really like having them made. So lots of times I'll get all kinds of different things, you know, grandpa's file and a piece of a barn beam, and, you know, make some more sentimental pieces. I do that stuff too. So, but it probably started, there's quite a decoy carving community in this little pocket, and by pocket I mean Southwest Michigan. And I got a lot of friends who do it, and they started just asking me to make knives for them. So eventually it's turned into, you can see some of the models here, which is a decent representation right now of what I do, but it just kind of started that way. And it's been more geared towards decoy guys, because that's all I know. But that's why I'm looking forward to meeting all of you guys today that do more caricatures and all kinds of different things. So I hadn't really done too much with anybody else other than decoy guys. So yeah. Should I just maybe run through models, you think, or?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your process, Shawn, and the materials you use, kind of the steel that you use, your forging process, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I forgot to bring it in, but when I started, the steel that I use is called 15N20, and it's a high carbon steel. And it's most often used when I first started, it's bandsaws. Like I had 1 foot square pieces of bandsaw blade from, I think the whole blade was like 100 feet long or something from the old logging mills. It was this giant blade. I mean, it was this wide, let alone. So it's very durable. It's got a good flex to it, but it doesn't warp as bad. And it's springy, I guess. It responds to, which I find it, and it holds an edge really well. So that's pretty much what I use now is all 15N20. Unless it's a thicker model, like I have some guys, they want to do, a spine, that's a 1/8 inch spine for really roughing out things. Then I'll use a different, like a cutlery high carbon steel, which is called 52-100. And at that point, it's a little bit of forging, but it's mostly grinding parts out of flat stock. And I typically do all black walnut handles. So it's been just kind of a series of trial and error, because I'm sure you guys know as well that a carving knife sharp and just regular knife sharp, that's just whole two different things, man. I used to think my knives were sharp until I learned what sharp really is, like what you guys use on a regular basis. So it's helped me with my regular knife making too. Yep.
And then do you, when you put the steel into the handle, do you cut the handle in half and place it in there, or do you drill a hole, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, actually I drill it. I've tried it both ways. Because some companies I know, like what's their is it Valley Forge or something like that? Is that right? I think that a carving knife company, he uses rod and then smashes one end flat and then grinds the knife out of it, where I use a flat stock. So the shank of this particular blade is, from here to here, and it goes back in maybe like 1.5 inches. So I drill 2 holes, 2 small holes. So it's kind of like an oblong hole, and then glue that shank in there. And I use an epoxy from West Systems, and it's called G-Flex. And that's what we use for our knife handles and everything. And it takes a long time to cure, but that's the most bulletproof. I've had a few handles come out, or blades come out, but not very often. So that's probably the best stuff to use. So I guess long story short, I drill it out and use the best glue I know.
Can you talk a little bit about the sharpening process? And
Oh yeah, yep. That was one thing. Well, maybe I'll do the Thom Matus story now. I was fortunate enough to meet a gentleman called Thom Matus at a decoy show a couple of years ago. And his is called TM Decoy, and he's an 8-time carving champion. And he got with me to make these knives for him. And this large one is called a Tupelo knife. It kind of originated down south, as you can imagine, but a lot of the bodies and stuff that they carve out, they got to remove lots of wood at a time. So, and they would carve it out of Tupelo. So that's a 3-inch blade with a big handle for removing lots of material at a time. And then on the same note, this is a little shorter, like a 2-inch blade. And the one thing about this is it's got the depressed area right here for your thumb. So it's a good detail knife. So he was good enough to work with me to produce these 2 knives. So that's really what kind of got me started being more serious about it. So Thom has a method that he shares on Decoy Carving Forum as well. And that's the method I use to sharpen all the knives. But he starts with, and I have, I believe it's 240 grit and 400 grit. And this is just a piece of, I don't know, it's hardwood, so it's mahogany or something. But so I start at 240 usually. And then I'll take a marker and color the very edge of this blade on both sides. So that way, when you run it across, you can see how well you're removing or not removing the very edge. So the marker, I didn't bring a marker with me, but when you mark that edge, that's really showing you when you go across if you're getting it all the way down to the edge or not. So, but once you remove that marker, you're going to go 240, then go 400. And then I go up to a whetstone, and I use, it's called Easy Lap. I don't know if anybody uses those, but I like this one because it's got 600 grit on one side and 1200 on the other. So I just do the same thing, you know, mark the edge, and then I'll do maybe 10 swipes one way, 10 the other, and just kind of feel how it's going. And once I'm off the stone, then I go to a strop. And a couple different kinds. A lot, probably most of you guys use cowhide. This is like an 8-ounce cowhide on this one. But I've learned that hoghide is more dense and thin. It doesn't have the cushion or the give as cowhide. So when I strop, I tend to use this hoghide one because it doesn't, I mean, on a microscopic level, it doesn't kind of wrap around the blade as much to dull it out. And plus this one I made with a rounded edge. So it's almost like a knife steel, you know? So when I strop the final, I'm usually using that rounded edge and kind of working it almost like a knife steel, because you're only making contact with that very little bit right in the center there. And it really does a good job of putting a razor's edge on this thing. So, and that's kind of, you know, I always try to look at what it's going to do on the end grain like that. And if it's not chattering through there, I'm usually pretty happy with it. So yeah, so that's just some basswood that I tested on. But so yeah, that's kind of the process I go through. There's also, there's a set of wheels. They're 8-inch wheels, and they're cut out of MDF. If you're familiar with that product, it's like a press board, really medium density fiber board, I guess it's called. So it's almost like a plywood, but it's literally just 2 8-inch wheels that you can bolt on your grinder and put some compound on the wheel, and you can use that. I face the grinder away from me and then just go across the top of that wheel. That's a good touch up. It's crazy. It's just, that's all it is MDF, but it does a really good job. So, yeah.
Hey, Shawn, can you talk a little bit about how you got onto Forged in Fire and your experience there?
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do is I watch another show on the History Channel, and it's called Alone, if you've ever seen that. And they dumped 10 people out in the middle of nowhere. Everybody's by themselves. They get like the 10 items on their back. Whoever's stupid enough to stay out there the longest wins $1 million though, right? So, but I just like to watch that stuff. So I contacted one of those contestants. He's been on there twice, and his name is Britt Ahart, and he's from Ohio. And he was nice enough to let me make it. He's got 2 signature survival knives now that I make for him. And he basically talked to the people at the History Channel and got me the interview. And it started like this, you know, a Zoom meeting. And gosh, 2 or 3 different Zoom meetings. And then you had to make a knife over 14-inch blade and stuff like that, just to show them that you could do it. But yeah, so once I was approved, they said, we'll pretty much give you 2 weeks notice. So we don't know when that's going to be. It could be next week. It could be a year. We don't know. So, but they called within a month and I was scheduled and I went in there. So that was last May, I guess. So, and then it aired last October, I think it was. So yeah, if you want to watch it. But it was a crazy, my flight got delayed, my luggage got lost. I went there and literally I slept like 3 hours the night before. I got to my hotel room at 3 a.m. and my luggage was gone and I was in sweats, man. So they went to the store, they went to Walmart and bought me clothes. With the clothes you see me on Forged in Fire, they just bought like an hour before, boots and everything, because all I had was sweats, man. And so yeah, I wore somebody else's clothes to compete. So that made it interesting. But yeah, it was a unique experience. I'd do it again if they asked me, for sure. I see somebody had a question, maybe?
Shawn, it's Don Swartz. I set up with out at the ODCCA right across from you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you have any more of your smaller carving knives with you that you could show?
I guess.
Than the one from Thom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have a couple of your knives. I bought a couple of them, and I certainly can attest to the good steel in them and so on.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's great. I just kind of put together the last order, or multiple orders. So there's literally, I don't know, 8 of my different models in here. So as I mentioned before, this is probably one of my smaller ones, is that TM knife with the 2-inch blade.
You do some straight edges too?
Without the spine being swooped like that?
Yeah, well, rather than the cutting surface being upswept.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so more of something like that.
Yeah.
So I
thought I had a couple smaller ones too.
It may be. Since I've seen you, things have changed a little bit. So there might have been a few models that I made before that I'm not necessarily making now, but this one is, his name is Reg Birch. I don't know if anybody's heard of, I think he's over in like the Carolinas somewhere, but he does this, and I call this a sheep's foot because it's, down swept with the edge. But this is a real thick blade and a specific handle to his hand because he's removing just lots and lots of material at a time. But I also make a standard, what I call a sheep's foot blade, with my standard, handle like this. And the blade's only, 1 3/4 inches, something like that. So if you could imagine combining those two, but I do that as well. But I kind of got the impression from, Blake's been so nice as to promote this all week. So every time he does, I get another couple questions, which is great. But it sounds like a lot of you caricature carvers or regular carvers tend to do the sheep's foot model more so than the upswept model that the decoy guys use, is what it sounds like.
Shawn, I ordered a sheep's foot from you last night, the 1 3/4 one. I have a question as far as the do you have to do any heat treating with the 15N20, or is it's already treated?
Nope, it comes I guess soft, I guess if you can say that. And basically I do my own heat treating there. So I cut them out, I don't even do a primary grind. And then you heat it up to non-magnetic, which is usually around 1300 degrees. So it's a nice cherry red. And then you quench it in oil. And literally I just use like canola oil. It's not any special oil. Because basically you're exciting those atoms, you're causing them to realign. And once they get into that hardened state, you want to cool them and lock it in as quick as you can. So you dunk it in oil, and I think it's, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds. And it'll get all those molecules to realign. Then now it's hardened, but then it'll be very brittle at that point. Like you could drop it and break it brittle. I've done it, unfortunately. And so that at that point you need to temper it, which is a different heat treat, which is pretty much putting it in the oven 2 times for 2 hours at 400 degrees. And that kind of draws it back and gives it more of a spring or more of an ability to be bent. So they call that tempered. So yeah, that's my heat treat process to each individual blade. I do that. Yep.
Shawn,
Yes.
have you ever challenged yourself to make Damascus steel, or have you ever worked with Damascus?
Yeah, I do my own shop made Damascus. I've got a couple presses out there and a power hammer. So I don't get enough of a chance to do it because it's so time consuming. Usually I'm making so many knives. But yeah, I usually layer the same, that 15N20 with some other high carbon steel. So on my website, at 51bravo.com, there's lots of Damascus items out there that I've made. And usually I'll go anywhere from 60 to 200 layers of Damascus to make my blades. Yep.
Hey,
Thanks
Shawn,
very
there's
much.
a question in the chat asking if you've ever made any chip carving knives or be interested in making chip carving.
This is the one that I normally make, not being a chip carver myself. So I don't know how many different variables of this as far as the angle and length and that type of thing. This is the one that I've done in the past. I believe that's like an 1 3/4 blade at roughly a 45-degree angle. So that's my standard one. But, you know, I'd be open to anything if that's what that person was looking for. And that's on my website and my store.
There's also another question asking what the lead time is for an ordered knife if somebody wants to order a custom knife from you.
Yeah, usually I would say within 2 weeks, just kind of depending on what's going on. But yeah, it's been within a week or two probably would be a good lead time right now.
Hey, Shawn, more of a comment than a question. This is Jim Feather. I do caricatures. I have
yeah.
one of your knives. Yeah, I have one of your knives. It's about an 1 1/4 blade with an upsweep. And
Yep.
it's a sweet little knife for detail. If anybody's considering it, the handles that he makes are, it's just a normal, a basic handle, but it's comfortable. And I would say in comparing this knife to other carving knives that I use, it's a little stiffer. So if you like a stiff knife, it's a little bit stiffer, a little less give. So even out to the tip, but it doesn't feel like, you never feel like it's going to snap. It always feels like it's sturdy. Let's put it that way. So,
All right. I like that
a little
endorsement.
feedback. If you don't get any feedback, I do like your knife. Like your knife.
I appreciate it very much. Yeah, that's probably one I haven't made as much. I know Blake showed me that he had one of my original, just kind of my upswept detailed knives, and I haven't made them in a while, but I think it's just simply because I gravitated more towards that decoy community and they didn't seem to use them as much as, you know, I sell lots of these guys and lots of those guys. And those are people who are, you know, these are models that I've made from people that taught me how to make these knives, I guess. So, but I'd be happy to get back to doing that type of knife if that's what people want. I mean, it's certainly no problem for sure.
So Shawn, you and I talked, I think on Thursday night, a little bit about custom made knives and the fact that you are open to help people design their own.
Yep.
So I wanted to tell everybody on here, and we've got 123 people out there right now, and there'll be others, you know, once we post it on YouTube. But Shawn is definitely open to helping design your own style. So if there's something that you want, if there's a blade thickness, if there's a blade shape or a handle shape or whatever, reach out to Shawn, and he said he's sent knives back and forth between people to get them right several times. So just make sure that that you reach out to him if you're interested in that.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's how most of these things happen, right? You know, I don't, like I say, I carve. I've even have decoy carvers give me a class in exchange for a few knives, you know, so I carve, but not like you guys do. So I don't know what else you would want, you know. So a lot of times these things like this draw knife that come from the decoy carving community, and basically their statement was they wanted something smaller and thinner and wider to do when they're carving heads, to go up underneath the chin, in and around the bill. They want to do that with a draw knife, and so this was custom designed for that purpose, you know. So yeah, whatever you're into carving wise, I'd love to learn about what it is you're doing and what tools you find valuable, or you have one that's pretty close, but if it would only do this, or if it only had that. I like doing stuff like that. So
now we've got another question from the chat. Gil Drake's on here, who's also a knife maker, and he's asking how you check your Rockwell hardness, and how do you make sure that well, it just says, what is your Rockwell hardness and how do you test for hardness?
okay, I unfortunately I don't have the Rockwell machine, because man, they don't give those things away. So I have a set of files, and it's not as exacting. So about every couple months, I'll just heat treat a square of steel and send it to my buddy Stanley. He's down in Texas. He's my knife guru, I call him. And he forgot more about making knives than I'll ever know, probably. And he's got the RC tester. So he'll test it, you know, and give me feedback within a week. And if it ever varies, mine's usually right at 59. So I find that you start to get in the 60s, that's more in the kitchen cutlery range. So the durability goes up, that's great. But when it's time to sharpen, it's just so much more effort. To me personally, as far as sharpening, it stays sharp for an adequate period of time, but you can easily touch it up and then keep going. So I find 59 to be not too hard, not too soft, and that's kind of my goal. So, but in between times, I have those sets of files, and I think they're within like 3 Rockwell points. Like you'll have a file, if the file can scratch it, it's at least this hard. And you just keep moving up until you get to one where it doesn't scratch it at all. Well, now you know you're within a certain range at least. So.
And then another question, somebody's wanting to know if you make just the blades to sell so that they can mount them in their own handles.
Yeah, I've done that before too. In fact, maybe I'll have to get on my store and just put that in as a line item, you know, where if I get $50 for a knife, it's probably, you know, maybe half and half as far as blade work and handle work. So maybe I put them up there for $25 or something, you know. But yeah, I can do that, because I know a lot of you guys have, even the ones you buy, you end up tweaking the handles yourselves anyway to make it fit your hand better. So yeah.
Another question from the chat there, Shawn. What kind of shop do you have? You want to talk about your shop a little bit, your forge?
Yeah, definitely. Because that's been kind of my latest and greatest effort. I currently have a shop out in my pole barn, which you can see on my website, 51bravo.com, in the gallery. It's a big, it's 3 stalls below, but then there's 1 stall up above, and I'm currently turning that into my new forge. And I'm real excited about that. On my YouTube channel and stuff, I've been filming kind of the progress, because I am a builder as well. So I'm building that thing out. But it's all old school, rustic, reclaimed tin and reclaimed barn wood and pallet wood. And it's looking old school in there. And I'm making a larger facility, because I've been doing a lot with teaching knife making. And it became a really popular thing. I bet you I've taught probably 15 classes so far. Turns out a lot of people thought that was like, wives thought that was a cool present to get for their husband, you know, like if you guys are like me, if you wanted it, you're going to go out and get it anyway. And plus your wife's going to just get the wrong thing anyway, or, you know, your significant other, because they don't know what, you know. So this was something that they can come out. I'll do as much or as little of the work and just kind of guide them along. So in one day they can walk out with a knife that they make. So I've taken that. Plus I have a couple of kids that I have come in and use my shop and learn from me. And I teach construction apprentice classes too. So what I'm trying to do is combine all this into my own forge, but a learning facility as well, where people can come learn. And I've already thought about having my local carving friends, they could use my facility for that. We don't have to make a knife every time. Guys can just come in with whatever they're carving and shoot the breeze and have a nice heated space with the equipment to do their thing, you know? So I'm kind of thinking more, I'm calling it Knife University, but you know, maybe a church youth group or something. They have a group of kids, let's build birdhouses, or, you know, they rent the facility or something. So lots of ideas for it, but I'm super excited. Within the next few weeks, you'll see the new shop rolling out. So.
And tell us a little bit about where people can find you. I know you mentioned the YouTube channel.
Yep.
What's the name of that channel? And Instagram, Facebook, you have other places where they can find you?
Yeah, it's 51bravo.com. And I think it's facebook.com/51bravo. And then Instagram is at 51bravo, the 51 Bravo. And YouTube, I believe that's the same thing. I'm not sure about the address, but you know, I do all kinds of stupid stuff. I make up stupid shop songs and sing them. Who knows? I come up whatever speech of the day was, but you know, so my YouTube channel is for just, I don't know, if you're really bored content, I guess. But so I tend to do a little bit of everything on any given day if I'm in the mood. So, oh, we got some more questions.
Yeah, tell us about again the handle, what kind of handle material you use, and then what the finish is that you put on those handles.
Yeah, it's all black walnut, and I got another buddy of mine. He would be a fun guy to talk to at some point too. His name is Paul Rutgers, and it's called Rutgers Spoons. And the dude makes, I've got 10 of his spoons, and you think, what's so cool about a spoon? But all the different shapes of spoons that he makes is crazy. And they're all so useful. He's got one little, I don't know, it's like kind of shaped like a spoon, but then it's flat. And he calls it like a spurtle or something. It's like a scraper thing, and you can get down into a jar or whatever, mayonnaise or whatever, and it's perfect. It fits in there, you know. So he just does all the cool things. So he literally gives me a truckload, an F-150 load of pieces of walnut that are this big, that they're not big enough for his spoon, so he's just going to burn them. And it'll be, you know, 8-quarter and 6-quarter. And so I just got slabs all over the place of really top-notch black walnut. And then I sand it down to an 800 and then do a coat of Danish oil. And then I do, what's it called? Feed and wax. It's like this citrus, you guys probably know. Howard's Feed and Wax. That's it. Yep, that's the stuff. That stuff is awesome. I use that on my regular knives too, on just the canvas handles and everything. If you're not using that on something that you're putting a finish on, you need to, because that stuff is awesome. And then there's the final thing I put on there. It's called Renaissance Wax. I don't know if Ren Wax is, from what I understand, they invented it for the museum industry. It doesn't matter what you have, you put Ren Wax on it, it looks better. Like, it can be just this thing. It could be these headphones. It could be this. You put Renaissance Wax on it, all of a sudden it looks awesome. You thought it looked pretty good until you put that on there, and it makes it look great. So I guess, a combination, but the feed and wax is important, and that final coat of Renaissance wax. So it's not a very built up finish. It's a real natural finish, but it's got, it's sealed just enough, you know, so it's not, you're not developing hot spots over time because you can feel that grain coming through to your hand. It's just slick enough, but not slippery, in my opinion. And I don't really like a handle that's shiny. I know some of you guys do, but that tends to create a hot spot in my hand just from varnish on there. I guess I'd rather have a hammer that way too, you know, one that's not, it's grippy, but not like super shiny and slick. I saw someone, did someone ask where I was from maybe?
Yeah, someone
kinda
asked where you were located.
Yeah, it's Wayland, Michigan. And the cool thing about living in Michigan is that you always got the map, right? So it's, let's see, right about there. So Southwest Michigan. Actually, is that backwards in the thing? I can't tell which way it's supposed to go. But yeah, so Southwest Michigan, between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. Yep. That's why I'm in the basement, because outside I gotta, it's literally like 13 degrees outside. So if I'm out in the shop, my heater's going all the time.
You talked a little bit about your heat treating. What heat source do you use? You use a forge, I assume. And
Yep.
you said you use just canola oil on the small blades. Do you use any kind of 50 parts or something like that for your big blades, or what quenching oil do you use?
I do sometimes, but what I've learned is, for those of you who don't know, you can quench something in just about any kind of oil. Like people use old car oil, people use olive oil, vegetable oil, because really all you're doing is you're trying to cool this down at a quick rate. And there's a company called Parks that makes actual quenching oil, and it's called Parks 50. They make a little bit slower cooling one, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's the fastest quenching oil. In other words, you get your steel to non-magnetic, you got it right where you want it. You want to lock those guys in. And to do that, you need it to cool as quickly as possible to keep those atoms from moving around anymore. That's a good thing, but with smaller blades, because they cool so fast, they warp. Because these guys, I start with 16th inch steel on all of this stuff. So it's pretty thin to begin with. And then to be so small, to use a Parks oil on it, I'll throw a warp in almost every one. It's just too fast. So I can use Parks 50 on some, but even these guys, I find that, you know, this is a thick blade. It still gets its 59 hardness with just canola oil, and it doesn't throw warps. So for me, just the simple stuff works. I have this stuff, like on Forged in Fire, the knife that I made, I used their Parks 50 and I threw a warp, sure enough. So I wish I could have brought my own oil or something. I don't know, but.
So another question, do you do knife repairs? And then also what kind of steel is in the files that you use?
Oh, I have done repairs. It depends on what it is. I do a lot of restorations too. I've had quite a number of guys, you know, with their grandpa's World War I trench knife or something, you know. That's kind of scary business, because you don't want to mess up someone's heirloom or whatever. But on the same token, most of the time by the time I get it, you can't make it look much worse, you know. So but yeah, I've done repairs depending on what it is. Folding knives, not so much. I do mostly fixed blade stuff. So I guess it depends on, you know, what you have. But yeah, I've done lots of repairs to, people will have old butcher knives, old cleavers, and things like that, where the rivets break out, the handles break out or whatever. I can do that. Yep.
Shawn, there's a question in the chat asking whether or not you can make a carving knife out of Damascus steel.
I can. In fact, I make some other things too on there on my website. You'll see there'll be scraps of the Damascus after I make a knife. So I make pendants for necklaces and stuff like that too. So I could, and as a rule of thumb, if you see a knife, whatever it costs at the store, in my store, if you want a Damascus, double it. And that would be the price. So I've never made one because a lot of times people go, oh yeah, I'm not paying that much for a Damascus carving knife. And I get that because it's not cheap, but it literally is double the labor because you got to make your own steel first and then you make the blade from there. So, but I could do it.
So we'll go ahead and open the floor up. If anybody else has questions for Shawn, we'll go ahead and open it up for anybody else.
That'd be awesome.
Shawn, hello.
Sir.
Is there any advantage to using a Damascus steel in the knife?
I find that, see, the hunting knives that I carry, I make my own Damascus and use, and they tend to just hold an even more of a razor's edge for a longer period of time. And I think because at a microscopic level, it's like shark's teeth, right? I mean, it's just a million little teeth like this on that edge. So as far as processing game goes, I think that's a great thing and it holds its edge longer. That might hold true in the wood carving thing too. I don't know if that's the case or not, but so in my opinion, it holds a razor's edge just a little bit longer being Damascus because there's just so many little micro edges of steel as opposed to just one honed edge. So I would think yes, but I wouldn't know till we tried. So somebody order one. Anything else? I also had, that's what I wanted to bring up here for you woodworking types. I don't have it on my store now, but in my pictures, used to make a Spokeshave. And my buddy did the wooden frame for it. So, you know, this is a draw knife. The Spokeshave is similar to this, but wooden body with a blade that inserts. So kind of plain, kind of draw knife put together. And the decoy guys were loving that. And the guy that was doing those handles for me, we can't seem to connect on it. So if there's anybody interested in making them, I can send pictures. They're on my Facebook page and stuff, but I make the blades for them. And I don't know how many of you guys use Spokeshaves though. So maybe it's not even a thing unless you're in the decoy carving business.
I have some a comment on the Damascus, if y'all can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, I've actually used scrap to make a Damascus carving knife, and I totally agree with you on the teeth. However, I found that in comparison to, say, 01, it cannot take and hold a fine edge smoothly. So although it can hold the edge, it can't take as fine while keeping a clean, waxy cut. So I had to take and put a secondary bevel on it that was, I think in the end, about 20 degrees, more like a camp knife would be versus, say, a 12 degree for a nice, fine custom carving knife to keep a clean, waxy edge. But it was pretty now.
yeah, that's always the draw, right? But that was kind of what I was thinking too. You know, like I say, for butchering an animal, awesome. Carving a knife, carving a piece of wood and getting that edge that you're looking for, it might honestly be a little bit too rough for it at that small level.
Yeah, it would delaminate when it was so fine and create larger teeth. To an extent, but just to affect the cut.
Yeah, so that's probably a better answer. Thanks for that input.
Shawn,
sir,
I got a question, two questions really. What about is the handle dimensions on your handles? I got a large
yeah, usually the handle length itself is 5 inches.
I'm more interested in diameter.
Oh, in diameter. My standard handle is more of an oblong shape. So usually I start out with a piece of 4/4 and round it off. So it might be just a touch less than an inch in width that way, but I kind of do an egg shaped. That's my standard one, but as you can see, I do, you know, I can pretty much match any handle. This one's more of an inch and a half around, but I can match any handle with some certain specifications. These are just kind of the standard ones, I guess, that I do.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you got bigger hands or smaller hands, we can make that work.
And do you have any trouble with tip breakage?
Not really. The only time, if I do, and I have had that a few times, it's I messed up in the heat treat, or I did have a batch when I first started. There was a handful of them that I was doing something wrong in the heat treat, so we were popping tips. But so I won't say it doesn't happen, but I'm getting it down to the point where it doesn't happen very often. But if it does, you know, I always make completely new stuff for anybody if they have a problem with it. You know, if a blade would happen to wiggle loose or you get a crack in the handle or something, I'd always just make you another one for that if that were to happen. So
Thank you.
yeah.
So Shawn, a couple more questions. What type bevel do you put on your carving knives?
I guess I would say it's probably in and around that 15 to 20 degree, because I used to pay attention to bevels. You know, you get a lot of sharpening. There's a million ways to sharpen your knives or whatever, and most of them really focus on the actual degree that you're using. And I quit paying attention to that a long time ago. I just keep grinding on it till it's sharp. So I don't really know technically what that angle is, but I would guess in between a 15 and a 20. And another thing that I learned from Thom when he was showing me how to make these decoy carving knives is I do a very small micro bevel at the bottom, very, very small. But by and large, you want to be able to just lay your blade flat and put just a little bit of pressure towards that trailing edge and sharpen it. So you don't really have to worry about angle as much. In other words, it's almost one big angle all the way down to the end on most of my knives. These chip knives, I put a little bit more of a micro bevel on at the very edge. But a lot of them, it's just one big bevel all the way down. So it's got just a touch of a micro bevel, but that makes life easier for you guys. You don't have to sit there and try to guess as to what angle you're putting your knife on the strop. If you just lay the blade flat with just a little bit of pressure on the trailing edge, you're going to be able to keep this thing like a razor on your strops.
And can you tell us again the smallest detail knife that you have?
Right now, these, and like I say, the one Blake that you have and the other gentleman have, it's more of just an upswept. This is, I call this a duck blind knife. So it's similar. This is like 1 3/4 inches. So I guess I would say my standard detail knife is about that as well. But that's all just been kind of driven by the decoy carving community. That's what guys said they wanted. So if you have a need for a smaller one than that, you know, if you've got a general shape or whatever, we can tweak that, you know, because this blade's 2 inches long, but it's really narrow and thin. So I can deal with pretty much any dimension if you have a custom dimension. Because like I say, there's so many guys. I've made knives for a couple guys that carve, they make old carousels, like the horses, and I mean, these dudes are crazy, the stuff that they carve, and they got a whole different set of knives that I've never seen. In fact, they use a lot more of the sheep's foot style for what they do. I think they do lots of stop cuts and then come back into them this way. So you can kind of do both things at once really well with that. But so yeah, if anybody does some, you know, custom stuff and has different knives, I'd love to see, you know, what we could do.
And what's the best way to get a hold of you if someone wants to get a custom knife made by you, Shawn?
I would go ahead and go through the website at 51bravo.com, and there is a contact section. and that goes to all my emails. So whether it comes through to Facebook, it comes through my website, it comes through my regular email. So yeah, just go to 51 Bravo, which is 51bravo.com, and in the contact section. Yep.
I got something.
Yes.
So speaking on the lines of more what you would like to see from us as what we would want to see from you. As a character carver myself, I prefer the smaller knives. I do little things like character faces and such.
Yep.
And, cowboys, things like that.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that completely with a knife, you do need a smaller one. So
Yep.
I believe people are asking for the smaller tools strictly for that, because when you have a tool that, I'll measure this right quick. This one is 1.5 inches, and I find amongst the carvers in my carving club that I'm in,
Yep.
1.5 inches is about the 100% most used and owned length for most carving that we do here.
Okay.
I'm out of Oklahoma, but as far as a rough out tool, what we would consider a rough out versus that being a detail, this is about 2 inch to 2 1/4.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I'm of the upsweep fan.
Yep.
So definitely some people love upsweeps.
Let me see the
but
profile on that first. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I used to make more of those and just kind of got away from it. But yeah, I'll have to do another one and put it up on the page, because I used to do one just like that.
So just to give you some more insight, what really I find makes the best usable geometry, the edge geometry, yes, definitely on the flat. Not only is it easier to strop and sharpen for the end user, but where you want your breakover, I believe what it's called is like cushion and clearance. Maybe it's clearance is the word. But when you're talking about a plane, like a hand plane that a woodworker would use, their plane blade, right where it breaks over to the main, what would be the spine for a knife,
Yep.
that needs to be just barely rolled over. And
Yep.
that allows the flat blade to gain that clearance to be able to flow and move in a predictable manner through the wood.
Yep. And that's, I do that with my Spokeshave blades. And then this is like a giant planer blade almost. And I do just that.
Yeah.
I put my main bevel and then do my micro bevel. And I do, just like you say, just a tiny little on the back side, the flat side, just break it just tiny so it can get in there and get that cut started. Yep.
I was referring more to the spine, but beautiful tools, by the way. I should have started with that. All your tools look wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and if you have any more custom stuff, I got a buddy of mine now that is a big turner. He does bowls and pens and all that stuff. So he's making me my handles now, because he's just way faster at it and way better at it. I can do it, but so anything like this, any of that is fair game too. I used to make some spoon knives or hook knives. I've had a few people ask for those lately, so I'd probably entertain getting back into that. That's a whole trick in and of itself, is sharpening those guys, but they're fun to make.
They are a pain.
They are. They are. But that's where having a radius on your strop comes in too. That helps a lot with a hook knife as well, I've found.
Yeah. I use a dowel.
Yep. Same thing.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So any other questions from the audience today?
Well, I guess if nobody else is going to ask, I am curious about the heat treatment portion of the two steels you use, your 15 and 20, and 52-100.
Yep.
Do any of those require anything more than just getting heated up, quenched, and then tempered?
No, neither one of those do. And they can, especially the 52-100, can be augmented. Like you can do a cryo treatment after it, which I do with my chef's knives, but that's because I'm trying to produce a Rockwell more of like a 61 or 62 for a kitchen knife. So there are other things available, but so far, I've not had anybody tell me that these either won't hold an edge or they're a super pain in the butt to sharpen, so it kind of feels like this 59 RC or Rockwell that I'm at seems to be a sweet spot. But, again, if you guys have special needs, things that you're doing, you want a harder knife or a softer knife or whatever, that probably wouldn't be a big deal either. It's just a matter of changing the formula,
Yeah, definitely not softer.
Mhm.
No, I
Yeah.
was just curious if they required anything like cryo. So you answered my question perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yep.
Hi, Shawn. Question. Joe Tambora speaking.
Oh, hey, Joe.
How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. You too?
Yeah, doing good. I just
Good.
wanted to know, do you ship to Canada?
Yep, I do. I think when you go to shipping, it's like a flat fee of it's $10 US, $20 Canadian, I think usually covers it for me, but I do.
'Cause I'd be interested in one of your draw knives.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's
never
on
tried
there.
one, but
What's that? Have I
Pardon
tried
me?
it? This one
I've
I've
never
just
tried them before.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm interested in trying them, and I don't want to buy them in a local store. I'll encourage someone that I know.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it because this one I got a lot of input from other decoy guys too, as to they wanted the overall height not to be more than 3/4 of an inch. And they wanted the top portion rather than just being flat up here, it's actually beveled backwards a little bit. So it's easier to roll in and out of, like I say, underneath the neck and bill. And then this handle size too I kind of did a survey on the decoy carving forums, and I had larger, more round handles, and this was kind of the one that most people voted on. So I got a lot of input in design for this thing. So from mostly you decoy carving guys. So sounds like so far I've shipped like a dozen, and guys are just starting to get back with me. And so far everybody really likes them. So
yeah, they look pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. I got some. Thank you. I got more ideas coming up too. It's just a matter of having the research and development time to get them out there. So.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, Shawn, we're running an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and thank you for coming on today. Thank you for providing the information to all of us. Your knives are awesome. Like I said, the one that I have is similar to the one that Evan was looking for. So I know you can make one like that, and I use it. So Evan, if you're interested, reach out to Shawn and get him to hook you up with one of those. Again, reach out to Shawn if you want a custom made knife. If you're looking for blades, if you're looking for handle work, something like that, reach out to Shawn and he'll be happy to help you. Wanted to tell you a little bit about some stuff that's coming up here on the meeting. So I'll share that with you real quick. Next week, we'll have Claw's Creation coming on. They're going to talk to us about making or carving bowls, spoons, and knives. They're from Sweden. So look them up on Instagram, Claw's Creations. On the 13th of February, we'll have Brian Melton on from Rough Cut Craft in Knoxville, Tennessee. He does life-size carvings. On the 20th, we'll have Lucas Koss coming on talking to us about cottonwood bark carving. Dwayne Goswell is going to be on February 27th doing a demonstration on study sticks. On March the 6th, we have Rich Ebling coming on doing marionettes. On March the 13th, we're going to have Mary May on from Mary May's Carving School. She has a school of traditional carving, and she's going to be on talking to us about that and probably doing a demonstration as well. And then on the 20th of March, we're going to have Janet Cordell on. And on the 27th, we'll have James Ray Miller. So as you can see, we've worked on trying to get some people lined up. We're pretty much booked up through March. So we look forward to having these meetings coming up and continuing the meetings through this year. We want to thank all you all for buying us a coffee through the link that we provided so that we can continue to provide these Zoom meetings. We've used those funds to be able to pay for the presentations. As far as the Zoom access that we needed to be able to increase the number of people in. Today, I think we had 123, so that's fantastic. And it just goes to show that it was worth it for us to be able to increase that access on Zoom. Remember the classes that are available. Go to woodcarvingacademy.com and check out their offerings there if you're interested in taking classes. They also have all the information about the classes I spoke about at the beginning of the meeting. So if you're interested in any of those, check those out. And again, go out and check out chippingaway.com. They provided us the $100 gift card that we gave away last week, and they've done quite a bit to support this group. So check out chippingaway.com. Go out and buy all your carving needs from them. So thank you all for joining us today. Shawn, thanks for everything. Everybody go out to 51 Bravo, check out his knives, contact him, send him some business, and hopefully we'll be working with him on some things in the near future. And again, join us next week at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll have Claus Creations on. They'll be talking to us about hand-carved bowls, spoons, and knives. So until then, we'll see you next time from International Association of Woodcarvers.
All right. Thanks.